Your catalytic converter is probably the most expensive part under your car that you have never thought about. Over $1,000 to replace, sometimes $2,000, sometimes $4,000. And right now, there is a part on your engine that costs less than a fast food meal that is slowly killing it. When it fails, it takes your catalytic converter with it. There are 16 everyday habits destroying catalytic converters right now. These habits are connected. They create chain reactions, and we are going through all 16, building down to the single fastest way to brick a catalytic converter in one afternoon. Number 16. Aggressive driving and sustained high RPM operation. To understand why this matters, you need to know what is inside your catalytic converter. It is not a hollow pipe, it is a chemical reactor. Inside sits a ceramic honeycomb coated with platinum, palladium, and rhodium, some of the most expensive metals on Earth. When hot exhaust passes through, those metals trigger reactions that turn toxic gases into carbon dioxide, water vapor, and nitrogen. The whole system depends on heat and a precise fuel ratio of 14.7 parts air to 1 part fuel. Factory catalytic converters last well past 80,000 miles. Some Prius models have gone past 300,000. But when one dies early, something upstream killed it. When you hold your engine at high RPMs daily, you blast extremely hot exhaust through that honeycomb non-stop. Normal operating range is roughly 260 to 650 degrees Celsius. Sustained aggressive driving pushes higher. The precious metals on the wash coat exist as tiny particles whose huge surface area makes the reactions work. Extreme heat causes those particles to clump into bigger blobs. This is called sintering. Once they clump, you lose surface area for good. Occasional hard driving actually helps burn off carbon deposits from city driving. The problem is driving your commuter like a track car every single day. Number 15. Fuel delivery faults. Leaking injectors, dirty injectors, and failing fuel pressure regulators. A bad regulator floods cylinders with excess fuel. A leaking injector drips raw fuel even when the engine is off. Dirty injectors spray blobs instead of a fine mist. All three send unburned fuel into a catalytic converter at several hundred degrees. That fuel ignites inside the honeycomb. Temperatures spike, wash coat melts, ceramic cracks. Signs include dropping fuel economy, black spark plugs, gasoline smell from the tailpipe, and negative fuel trims on a scan tool. If that driver had tested the injectors when the fuel smell started, the catalytic converter would still be alive and they would still have $2,000. Fix the fuel system first. That upstream first principle is the most important diagnostic lesson you can learn. Number 14. Installing cheap aftermarket catalytic converters. Your catalytic converter fails. The dealer quote makes you choke. You find a universal one online for a fraction of the price. Check engine light disappears. You feel like a genius. 3 months later, same P0420 code. The original was engineered with specific cell density, wash coat chemistry, and precious metal loading matched to your engine. Cheap replacements cut every corner. If you never fixed what killed the first one, the replacement dies even faster. Quality brands like Walker and MagnaFlow approach OEM performance when properly fitted, but try OEM first. A cheap catalytic converter that fails in 6 months costs more than a quality one that lasts 5 years. Number 13. Neglecting intake airflow. Your MAF sensor measures incoming air using a heated wire. The computer uses that signal to calculate fuel. Wrong air reading means wrong fuel amount. What makes this dangerous is how invisible it is. Your car's computer also gets feedback from 2 oxygen sensors in the exhaust, one before the catalytic converter and one after it. So it partially corrects for a bad MAF by adjusting fuel trims. Remember those 2 sensors. They are going to become the most important characters in this story by the time we reach number 4. But right now, that partial correction means your car might drive normally for thousands of miles while inconsistent combustion quietly bombards your catalytic converter with soot and temperature spikes. Cleaning the MAF wire takes 5 minutes and costs a few dollars. Replacing an air filter is one of the cheapest maintenance items on any car. Ignore them, and your engine quietly stresses your catalytic converter until something expensive breaks. Number 12. Neglecting turbocharger health. When turbo oil seals fail, oil blows straight into the exhaust and coats the honeycomb with baked-on ash. When bearings wear out, they shed metallic debris that acts like sandpaper on the ceramic. Now, can I just point out something here? This is the only failure mode on this list where actual metal particles do the damage. Everything else is heat, chemicals, or fuel. Owners who ignored the signs, a whining noise, blue smoke, loss of boost, found their catalytic converter choked within weeks. Ford turbo platforms especially report turbo and catalytic converter codes showing up together. Fix the turbo first. Number 11. Exhaust system and underbody neglect. Start with the one that surprises people most. Driving through standing water when your catalytic converter is at several hundred degrees. Ice-cold water hits the scorching housing. The ceramic contracts unevenly and cracks. This is called thermal shock. One puddle, one event. Done. Exhaust leaks are sneakier. A leak upstream of the oxygen sensors lets outside air in. The sensors read lean. The computer dumps more fuel. Your engine runs rich, and you might not notice because it drives normally. Often, just replacing worn gaskets solves false catalytic converter codes. Potholes crack the honeycomb. Loose mounts start cracks over time. Salt eats the housing on winter roads. Downstream restrictions like a crushed tailpipe trap heat. A rattle at full operating temperature usually means the ceramic has broken apart inside. Number 10. Coolant ingress. Antifreeze is not just water. It contains phosphate and silicate compounds that vaporize at combustion temperatures and deposit as mineral crusts on the catalyst surfaces. That poisons the cerium-based oxygen storage materials and chokes off the catalytic converter. When liquid coolant hits ceramic at several hundred degrees, you get instant thermal shock and cracking. Toyota routes coolant through heat exchangers near the exhaust manifold in hybrids. Over time, hairline cracks let coolant leak onto the catalytic converter. Prius owners report unexplained coolant loss without puddles. The fix is often a line bypass. Diagnosing this is tricky because the coolant is consumed internally. No visible puddle. Slow reservoir decline. Maybe white smoke. Coolant can travel from higher leak points and pool at low spots. The diagnostic sequence is layered. Monitor levels, pressure test, UV dye, spark plug inspection, compression test. If the substrate is still intact, mild contamination can sometimes be flushed, but a wet catalytic converter will crack from flash boiling moisture the moment it heats up. If that Prius owner had caught the reservoir drop early, the bypass would have cost a couple $100. Catching it late means an engine rebuild plus a catalytic converter replacement. $200 fix versus $5,000 catastrophe. Number 9. Repair process mistakes. Forcing a poorly aligned pipe into place puts stored tension through the ceramic core. When the metal expands under heat, that tension cracks the substrate. Aggressive home cleaning, pressure washing, solvent soaking, or hitting it with a mallet forces contaminants deeper or shatters the ceramic. These methods create problems worse than the ones you started with. Number 8. Habitual short trips and excessive idling. This one probably applies to the majority of people watching right now. Your catalytic converter needs sustained heat above roughly 150 degrees Celsius to activate. Below that, it is a passive pipe doing nothing. Short trip, cold start, rich exhaust, 2 miles, shut off. The catalytic converter never got hot enough to work or burn off the soot and moisture from that cold start. Do that daily for months, and deposits smother the catalyst surface. The fix is simple. The community calls it an Italian tune-up. Sustained highway speed for 20 to 30 minutes. That heat burns off mild carbon deposits. Basic chemistry, but it does not fix structural damage, chemical poisoning, or melted substrates. Number 7. Chemical poisoning. Contaminated fuel sends soot downstream. Sulfur bonds to catalyst surfaces in a stable reaction called sulfur poisoning. Using the wrong octane when your manufacturer says premium drops combustion quality and sends more unburned fuel into the catalytic converter. And I remember being shocked when I first learned about this next one, standard RTV silicone sealant. If applied anywhere upstream, vaporizes and coats the wash coat with silicon dioxide, a permanent glass barrier. Your catalytic converter becomes chemically blind. The active sites are sealed under glass. It does not come off. Certain aftermarket oil additives with zinc and phosphorus meant for flat tappet cams deposit as rock-hard glazes on the honeycomb. Unlike carbon, this poisoning is permanent. A $5 tube of silicone or a $15 bottle of the wrong additive can permanently wreck a catalytic converter worth over $1,000. That rotten egg smell is hydrogen sulfide escaping when the catalytic converter struggles. But before you panic, check the simple stuff. A failing battery or mold on the cabin filter can produce the same smell with nothing wrong in the exhaust. Number 6. Masking problems instead of fixing them. And I get it. When you are staring at a $2,000 repair quote, anything that makes the check engine light disappear for 20 bucks sounds tempting. Fuel additives like Catalytic, Seafoam, and Chevron Techron use PEA detergent chemistry. They clean upstream components, your injectors, and combustion chambers. The additive is not repairing the catalytic converter. It is reducing what gets dumped into it. Helpful for mild carbon buildup when the underlying cause is already fixed. But when the substrate is melted or poisoned, no chemical can regrow lost platinum. Sensor spacers pull the downstream sensor out of the exhaust flow and trick the computer. The problem is still there, just invisible now. Number 5. Oil contamination. Skipping oil changes turns oil into sludge that wears piston rings and valve seals. Oil enters the combustion chamber. A clogged PCV valve forces oil vapor into the intake. When oil burns, its ash-forming additives survive as stubborn residues that coat the wash coat. They resist further burning and block the precious metal sites. Heavy oil consumption can foul a catalytic converter within 1,000 miles. There is a frustrating pattern where dealers downplay oil consumption until the catalytic converter is already fouled. Getting warranty coverage without documentation is extremely difficult. Track your oil loss. Photograph fouled spark plugs. Keep every service record. Fix the oil consumption first, then deal with the catalytic converter. Number 4. Ignoring faulty oxygen sensors. Those two sensors I told you to remember? This is where they take over the story. They protect your catalytic converter and diagnose it. Bodyguard and doctor. When they fail, your catalytic converter loses both at once. The upstream sensor monitors exhaust oxygen several times per second, so the computer can hold that 14.7 to 1 ratio. The downstream sensor watches the catalytic converter's output. In a healthy system, the downstream signal stays flat. When it starts mimicking the upstream's oscillation, the computer knows the catalytic converter is failing and throws a P0420 code. When the upstream sensor goes lazy, the computer defaults to richer fuel maps. Thermal damage builds in the background. When the downstream sensor fails, it can trigger false codes on a perfectly working catalytic converter. Checking downstream waveforms with an oscilloscope before condemning the catalytic converter can save you thousands. Sensors degrade over tens of thousands of miles. Ash coats them. Heater circuits fail. Sensors mounted at the 6 o'clock position are especially prone to condensation damage. The painful irony is that plenty of drivers see an oxygen sensor fault code and treat it as optional because the car runs fine. The sensor that was supposed to protect the catalytic converter was itself crying for help, and it got ignored. If that driver had replaced the $20 sensor when the light first came on, the catalytic converter would still be working. Instead, they saved $20 and lost $2,000. Number 3. Ignoring ECU software updates and technical service bulletins. This one makes people furious. And it should, because you can end up paying thousands for a repair that was never necessary. Some vehicles shipped with oversensitive engine computer software. The computer flags catalytic efficiency codes over deviations that a later update would recognize as normal. Honda owners have reported P0420 codes fixed by a dealer's software update. Toyota hybrids have shown oversensitive catalyst monitoring. Ford turbo platforms show sensor issues presenting as catalytic converter codes. Nissan vehicles have documented MAF and heater circuit challenges. Nightmare scenario. Mechanic does not check for TSBs. Installs a new catalytic converter. Same code 2 weeks later. The software was never updated. You paid full price for an unnecessary repair when the fix was a free reflash. Always check for bulletins, recalls, or ECU updates before approving any catalytic converter replacement. Many manufacturers cover catalytic converters under emissions warranties for 8 years or 80,000 miles. But warranty coverage requires documentation. Number 2. Replacing the catalytic converter without fixing the root cause. This is the most documented pattern in every forum and technician report. Owner gets a P0420, buys a new catalytic converter, bolts it on. 4 days later, same code. The leaking injector, the burning oil, the failing sensor, whatever killed the first one is still right there, killing the second. A 2005 Volkswagen GTI needed replacement twice in 1 year. A 2020 Ford Explorer ST went through multiple catalytic converters under 65,000 miles before the manufacturer stepped in. A 2013 Ford Taurus owner spent roughly $2,000 with no lasting fix. A 2009 Mitsubishi Lancer and a 2014 Hyundai Accent had recurring codes after bolting on aftermarket parts. And in some of these cases, basic maintenance like an oil change or ignition repair was all it took, proving the catalytic converter was never the real problem. I can imagine how that feels. $2,000 spent. You thought it was solved. 2 weeks later, same waiting room, same diagnosis, same clipboard. That sinking feeling from the beginning of this video, this is where it comes from. A catalytic converter does not die of natural causes. If you do not trace the failure back to the original leaking injector, bad coil, oil-consuming seal, or clogged PCV valve, the new one dies the same death. And it dies faster because aftermarket parts lack the durability margins. Proper diagnosis means monitoring both oxygen sensors with live data, comparing waveforms, inspecting for exhaust leaks, pulling spark plugs, testing injectors, comparing inlet and outlet temperatures. The outlet should be hotter because the reactions produce heat. Checking back pressure, checking the ECU software version, a Wi-Fi OBD adapter, an infrared thermometer, and a UV lamp are the 3 most cost-effective diagnostic tools you can own. Number 1. Ignition system neglect and driving through misfires. Nothing on this list destroys a catalytic converter faster than a misfire. When a spark plug fails or an ignition coil cracks, that cylinder goes dead, but fuel keeps injecting. A massive surge of raw, unburned fuel mixed with oxygen gets pushed straight into the catalytic converter. When that mix hits the blistering hot honeycomb, it ignites in an explosive secondary combustion event outside the engine. Internal temperatures spike to 1600 degrees Fahrenheit in seconds. The wash coat melts. Precious metals fuse. The honeycomb can collapse into a solid block of slag or shatter into fragments rattling inside the housing. One highway drive with an active misfire can end a catalytic converter for good. Your car has 2 check engine lights. Solid means attention needed soon. Flashing means emergency. A severe misfire is happening right now. If you see a flashing light and limp 5 more miles home, you may have committed a $3,000 act of self-destruction. When a misfire is detected, stop driving. When safely possible, get an OBD scan. Inspect spark plugs. If continued driving is unavoidable, limit load and reduce speed. And here is what should make every person watching this stop and think. The part that prevents all of this is a spark plug. $4 to $12. 15 minutes with a socket wrench. If that driver had checked their plugs when the engine first ran rough, the catalytic converter would still be alive, the car would pass emissions, and they would not be staring at a bill bigger than their monthly rent. The cheapest part on the car protecting the most expensive one. One final point. A badly clogged catalytic converter creates a feedback loop. Back pressure kills power, causes stalling, and in extreme cases, the catalytic converter can glow red hot, an actual fire hazard. The part that was supposed to clean your exhaust becomes the thing that destroys your engine. Your catalytic converter is the most sensitive indicator of everything upstream: combustion quality, sensor health, maintenance habits. Every habit on this list traces back to one fact. The catalytic converter does not fail on its own. Something upstream fails first. Do the cheap stuff first. Clean the MAF. Test the oxygen sensors. Change the plugs. Escalate if codes persist. Replace only when evidence shows melting, fragmentation, or irreversible poisoning. Invest in OEM or quality, direct fit parts. Document everything for warranty leverage. A $12 spark plug, a $5 MAF cleaner, and a $20 oxygen sensor are the 3 cheapest insurance policies in the entire automotive world. But to make absolutely sure you never experience that $3,000 misfire from habit number 1, you need to know about the part that causes it. There is one specific part under your hood that silently causes most engine misfires, and 99% of drivers find out what it is entirely too late. Click the video on your screen right now to find out what it is, and I will see you over there.